Welcome, everyone. Today, we're here for another episode of Head in the Clouds. Specifically, today, we're going to talk about how to control your mind. We'll talk about stress management activities. We're going to talk about stress management at the workplace. We'll talk about stress management and work life balance. We'll get into some of my favorite topics, which involve yoga and meditation, yoga and mental health, yoga and emotional intelligence. We'll talk about meditation stress relief, and it's going to be a good show for you. I am incredibly passionate about this topic because I know the secret. Stress doesn't matter. How you respond to stress determines if you get overstressed, if you get sick, or if you're relaxed and as cool about as my cat Cindy, who's taken a nap right after she just sprinted and brought me back 3 birds as gifts. So here's the thing. We are all impacted by stress in our everyday lives. And I've got a secret for you. The bigger career you want, the more stress you're going to get. It doesn't get any easier. The higher your salary, the more responsibilities you have. And when you reach the level of a CEO, every day you're fighting your competition, which is stress. You're making sure your team does what they need, which is stress. You're making sure a business has enough revenue that your team can be paid what they need so they're relaxed and their families are taken care of. You have to deal with performance issues. When they arise, you have to have difficult conversations. And this is every day. Whether you're an A-list actor, believe me, they go say something wrong and their whole career is over in a second. And I've consulted to many A-list actors with regard to this topic, and they talk about the stress that they have. I was an architect early in my career, and my manager said to me, Mike, you're responsible for 20% of the organization's income. If you don't close this deal, we're bankrupt. So I closed that deal. The point is stress is inevitable. You can avoid it, but if you avoid it, basically you're going to live in a padded room wearing cotton balls around you, and you're not going to get much done. Or you can accept that stress is there, and you can learn how to control it, learn how to manage it, and by doing so, you can thrive anywhere. I'll give you examples throughout today where times where I've been in extreme stress, the kind of stress that most people never dream about, and how I was able to stay calm and navigate through those situations. I don't talk about it a lot, so I'm going to let a little secret out. We all know me as a cloud architect and an enterprise architect and as a network architect. I have the most painful condition known in the entire world. It's called reflex sympathetic dystrophy. 50% or some ridiculous percentage of the patients that have reflex sympathetic dystrophy kill themselves because they can't tolerate the pain. And if they're not doing that, they're on the most severe pain drugs in the entire world. I know how to manage stress. I view pain as weakness leaving the body. I wake up every morning. I take my first step. It feels like nails are going through my foot and I'm being blown by a blowtorch. And guess what? I know how to manage stress, and I use this as an opportunity to get tougher. So these are the things we're going to talk about. And also, I don't like to talk about it a lot, but I am actually a yoga instructor. Now, there's 200-hour certified yoga instructors and 500 hours. Of course, I did the harder one, the 500-hour, and I did it because I wanted to be able to better coach my clients on how to stay calm, how to perform better, and achieve anything they've ever desired in their career. So we got a fun lineup for you, but let's turn it over to Chris and Alonzo to kick it off.
All right, I'm going to take the opportunity to talk first because I'm going to tell everybody about everything that we got for you, and then I'll let Alonzo talk. So before we get too far, I want to make sure that everybody knows that we currently have our Cyber Week sale going on. If you missed out on last week's Black Friday sale, don't miss out on this. It's going on through the end of the week, Friday, and you can get 40% off of every program that we offer. That's our Elite Architect program. That's our Cloud Architect program. That's our non-live training. That's our Tech Interview Mastery program. That's our Tech Interview Fundamentals program. That's our Tech Secrets to Building Your Brand program. Every single program you can get 40% off. Our Elite Cloud Architect program, that's normally $74.99, 40% off. Not just on the single payments, but also on the payment plans. So the 3-month payment plans, 6-month payment plans, 40% off every month of the payment plan, not just the first month or the first 2 months or anything like that. Every program, every payment plan, 40% off right now. and only right now. Take advantage of that. It won't get any better than this. If you waited on Black Friday to see if it got any better, you see it didn't get any better than this. This is as good as it's going to get. So take advantage of it. Don't hesitate. So that is there for you. Tyrone will be sharing that link there in the chat box. Also, this Thursday, we have our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. That's going to be completely live on Zoom with Mike and Alonso. If you're interested in learning more about the cloud architect role, how you can get your first cloud architect job, and how we can help you, join that webinar. It's completely free. You can learn everything about the role of the cloud architect and how to get your first cloud architect job, and ask questions of Mike and Alonso completely live, off mute, without any restrictions like we have here on YouTube. So that is on Thursday. Tyrone will have that link in the chat box as well. And then, of course, if the webinar wasn't enough, we have a ebook guide for you as well on how to get your first architect job. So if you're like me and you'd like to read, get the free ebook guide of how to get your first cloud architect job. You can learn all the same great details, and then you can also come to the webinar on Thursday. Do both of them. Why not? So get the free ebook, come to the webinar, take advantage of the discount. If you're already ready, just go ahead and do it. Don't hesitate. Take advantage of it. Start your journey today and start with us. Now, about the topic, I'm excited about this topic because I wish I had learned more about this topic 15 years ago. I also needed it about 12 minutes ago when nobody was here except me. And I'm like, we got a live show to do. Where is everybody? Stress management. So anyway, everybody's here. My stress is coming down. No more heartburn. Let's have a fun show. And I'll give Alonso and Mike a hard time afterwards about giving me heartburn. So Alonso.
Yes, Mr. Heartburn. How are you? Everyone, we are excited as always every day that we're always generating content, working with these two gentlemen to come up with new, innovative ways to enhance, strengthen, and make you even more of a value add to any organization that you're going for to become a competent cloud architect. We've got so many things. We're in the lab all the time building these things. And so, yeah, I get Chris, because Mike and I, we are visionaries. Chris, thankfully, we're the kites that are flying in the wind, and Chris drags us down to earth to make sure that our ideas don't tear us apart. So with that being said, we're always working hard. Hard makes stress. And how do we do these things? How do we reduce all this pent up energy that we have? Because I internalize everything. Okay. I'm just fusion reactor. And then something, like I used to be, something would tip me off, and off the edge I go. So I've learned how to mitigate that. And there's a lot of people who I'm sure that resonate with internalizing or other things that are counterproductive to you being the best person that you can be. So I'm looking forward to Mike. I'm looking forward to him sharing his experience. I got a few questions to share as well. Everybody strap in, find out how you can mitigate your own personal risk in your own lives, and let's make it happen.
All right. So Mike, let's take it away.
So I just want you to all think about something, to just plant the seed in your head, and then we're going to talk about it. Imagine you're Simone Biles, the world's greatest gymnast, and you're now being watched by millions of people all over the world. And if you don't get this vault right, or beam routine, or floor routine right, you're no longer the rest of the world. Your sponsorships go away. The U.S. Olympic team doesn't get that gold medal, and potentially the rest of your life is over as it pertains to your career if she doesn't execute. That's stress, right? Imagine Usain Bolt competing in the 100-meter sprint. If he's a tenth of a second too slow, he's no longer the fastest man in the world. That's no good either, at least when he was competing. Now you're an architect, and your manager says, I need you to go to Dubai and close this deal. You're the only thing holding this together. Go do it. Or your wife gets highly offended by some silly mistake that you made. And believe me, you'll be stressed until you can fix that, and potentially 6 months later, you'll be reminded about that mistake you did, but you still have to function. You have an argument with your child, and now you've got to go present at a conference. This is just life. And we can learn to roll with the punches, or we could let it beat us up. So, there was an element in one of the last Rocky movies where Rocky said to this kid was blaming his father for everything, and Rocky said to his son, it's not how hard you get hit. It's how hard you get hit and how many times you can keep hitting and can you get back up. That's how winning's done. And, I so agree with that. So understand, the better your job, the greater your level of stress. So how do you stay healthy? First, I want to break down what's actually going on in your body when you get stressed, so you understand. I used to practice internal medicine. I'm a nurse practitioner, so I love this topic, and it's really important to me. So here we are. We're all relaxed. My cat's sitting on my lap. Life's good. My heart rate goes down. My blood vessels get bigger, which drops my blood pressure. My cortisol, which is a stress hormone, goes down. My epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are stress hormones, go down. And I'm happy. In fact, I sit with my cat for hours a day just petting her head, and I feel great. But that's perfect environment. Now, all of a sudden, something happens. I get a phone call that triggers me. Somebody calls me and lies to me, which triggers to me, which, these are the kind of things, if you're a manager, you're going to be dealing with it periodically. I have a new business thing that's a thing. Poof, stress goes to here. So what happens then? First thing that happens is as follows. All the blood that's in your hands and your feet now rushes to your heart. And it does so you can prepare to fight, like as if you're running away from a lion. But we, generally speaking, don't run away from lions. Then your blood vessels constrict, which raises your blood pressure, which increases the workload on your heart. Then your body secretes these hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine. You can think of them as adrenaline, which raises your heart rate to prepare you for that attack and that fight with the lion, but there's no lion. Your cortisol levels go up, which makes you fat, raises your blood sugar into the diabetes range, and eats your muscle tissues, which again predisposes you to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and death. So I don't think that's a good option. So now let's examine the nervous system. We've got two parts of our nervous system. Under the autonomic nervous system, we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight, that stress where the vasoconstriction, high heartbeat. The parasympathetic system is the relax. Hang out with your cat, drink a beer, drink a glass of wine, have a nice Macallan 25 or a Blue Label if you like Johnny Walker Blue Label, or a nice cognac. We're happy. That's where I want you to live. That's where success is done. And why does it matter? Well, first, if you can't control your stress, you're going to get sick. And I don't want you sick. I want you healthy. But it also impacts your career. Do you know what happens when you're stressed and you go scream at somebody on your team? You destroy the relationship. And in a lot of companies, you get fired and your job's over. And maybe they don't fire you that day. They wait till the next time they have to lay off somebody on their team. And then out of nowhere, you're laid off and you don't even know why. Poof, that happens. Or you're up for a promotion, but you freak out on your boss. No more promotion. You're lucky to have a job after that. Or your wife does something that you really don't love and you jump down her throat. Your husband, I don't care, whatever it is, same kind of thing, your kids. The point is stress is going to be there. So it's how you manage it that's really going to be the key. Now, why do we have to do this? What's the other reason? Well, we've got multiple parts of our brain. When we're calm, when we're relaxed, we can problem solve. Do you know what happens when people get stressed? This prefrontal cortex, the problem solving, the thinking, logical reasoning part of the brain, it shuts down. Dead, done. You can't use it. No more thinking, no more reasoning. Now you've got this amygdala which kicks in, which is for fight or flight, which is fine if you need to flee or fight a lion. It is an absolute disaster when you need it. What if I told you that dialing 911 or 999 in the UK for people to actually call, many of them have trouble calling that number when there's an emergency? In fact, it's actually advised for people to unplug their phone from the wall and practice dialing 911 to actually get that learning pattern done, because the brain shuts off when people are stressed. What happens when a mugger attacks you on the subway? Can you stay calm and diffuse the situation or fight? Or do you get beaten up and put in the intensive care unit and die? That's all there. You know, I was in Panama one day working on an architecture project, and I was in a taxi and they had attempted to kidnap me. And I was on the phone with my wife and I was speaking to her in Greek, and they took me down a dark alley, shut the engine off. I used to speak Spanish in those days many years ago, and I heard them call and they invited their friends and they said, the guy's pretty big, but I think we can take him. And I heard the call and I switched from Greek to Spanish. And I said to my wife, no tengo dinero. I showed them I had no money. And instantly they stopped the kidnapping. Now, I could have fought my way out of it. I'm an extremely experienced martial artist, but I didn't have to, because I was calm enough to see the situation for what it was. I spent years as a paramedic. People tried to shoot at me. I even got hit with a bullet ricochet one day. But I'll tell you, that patient got taken to the hospital and they were healthy because I was able to stay calm. We're going to talk about some calming techniques, but it's there. You know what? My manager put me in an incredibly bad position one time. He fired somebody, and then he said, Mike, I need you to go meet with this client, with the person we just fired. And I said, I don't think this is going to be a good situation. And sure enough, I walked in there and it was pure animosity, but I diffused the situation and turned it into a success. But these are just situations. They're life. And I want you to understand this. The world is not getting simpler. We have more technologies, more distractions, more things, beep, 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 more messaging, more applications, more demands of us. And they're not going away. You can't tell your manager, I don't feel like it, I need a mental health day. You'll get your mental health day, but you'll also be laid off and looking for a new job. And believe me, that's going to give you a level of stress when you don't know how to pay your mortgage, if you have a mortgage that you don't want. How are you going to support your family? How are you going to do these kind of things? And that's really the key. So we're going to talk about relaxing and how to impact the body so you can think clearly when it's needed. Lonzo, you want to address anything before I start talking about the how-to?
Yeah, I've got plenty of questions, but no, Mike, I think we should get into it. I know we all have different facets and experience that we can plug into this discussion, but yeah, take the helm, and then we'll ask some questions later.
Okay, sounds good. Same thing for you, Chris? We have something to address here right now.
Oh no, I'm just here to learn. Like I said, I wish I had been more open to this topic 15 years ago. Would have saved me a lot of difficult situations. Because I did not, and I was gonna say I used to not, but I still to this day still don't necessarily respond to stress the best way possible, but a lot better than I used to. So I'm here to listen. And once you get through with your lesson of the day for us, I guess I've got some stuff to bring in, I'm sure.
Sounds great. So we've got our conscious mind, the stuff that we're aware of, and we've got our subconscious mind. That subconscious knows everything. And when someone's talking to you and they're saying, yes, this is going to help you, it's going to be great for you, and you feel sick, it's because their body language is telling you no. Your subconscious knows it, but the words don't match their actions. Go watch some of the politicians speak and you'll see people that don't believe anything they're saying. You can also see it all over the world, but there's that. So I alluded to before, and now I'm going to get into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So when you're but what happens as part of the autonomic nervous system? Does your heart beat without you thinking about it? It does. If you're an expert at controlling your mind and your body, like me, I can slow my heart rate down and I can speed it up. But normal people can't do that. And I can do it by thinking and breathing. But normal people can, unless they're martial artists or yogis or meditation gurus or Buddhist monks or things like that. Heart happens automatically. How about sweating? Any of you tell your body to sweat or not? Nope, that happens automatically. And that's part of your automatic nervous system. It's called autonomic, but I'm going to translate autonomic to automatic for you guys. How about going to the bathroom? Does your body not process your food like that automatically? Again, that's kind of done by itself. How about breathing? Do you have to tell your body to breathe? No. But can you tell your body to breathe? Look, I just changed it. So here's the good news. If you want to know how to control your mind and the stuff that happens automatically, breathing is one of the gateways. Breathing is automatic, but you can control it. So when you're relaxed, you breathe more slowly, right? And more deeply. When you're stressed, you either hold your breath or it's shallow breathing, again, which is bad. When you hold your breath, the oxygen doesn't get to your brain, which makes us dumber because we're in a hypoxic state. And believe me, you don't want to take an IQ test when you're in an hypoxic state. You don't want to take an IQ test when you're stressed either. You don't want to take your certification exam when you're stressed. Because these questions, which would normally be quite simple, now you're stressed and poof, they're overwhelming to you because your prefrontal cortex shut down. So parasympathetic, that relax, that stop sweating, that heart rate slowing down happens automatically. Sympathetic, fight or flight, you get stressed, boom, 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 boom. It happens automatically. You breathe differently, but you can control your breathing. You can also control your thinking. So let's talk about ways which this could be done. Because you can control your breathing, even though it's automatic, that is there. We'll talk about a couple kinds of breathing that we can do to calm ourselves down. I can also teach you how to warm your body up when you're cold with your breathing. And if we practice it long enough, for about 10 minutes, I could sit here and be totally sweaty just by breathing. And again, you can control this. And why does it matter? You're going to go negotiate a deal. You better be calm. You got a plan for your manager. You want to ask for a $100,000 raise. You better be calm. What happens when you go on an interview and you're like, hi, my name's Mike Gibbs. I'm a cloud architect. Do you think you're getting hired? You're not, I promise you. Because the employer interviewing you doesn't feel you've got the confidence to do the job. And if you're not confident in your abilities, they can't hire you. So as you can see, this becomes more and more and more important. You walk down the street in a dangerous area. You look like a victim and you look nervous, you're attacked. You look calm, generally speaking, you get left alone, assuming you're fully present. So it matters, and it matters a lot. So one of the things you can do when you're calm, is we can play with your breathing. I'm going to discuss a couple breathings. The first type of breathing I'm going to call it box breathing. Truth be told, it's out of India. It's a form of pranayama. For those of you that are yogis like me, this type of box breathing is very commonly used. It's taught to tactical athletes. That means firefighters. That means police officers. It includes Navy SEALs and others. It's taught to elite athletes, ready to calm their body down prior and get them ready prior to a competition. And it's used for yogis like me, and I use it in various capacities. And we're going to do some box breathing. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe. We're going to inhale for a count of 4, and we'll do it together. I'll do it with you. We're going to hold that breath for a count of 4. We're going to exhale for a count of 4, and then we're going to hold it for a count of 4. So we'll do it together. We're going to do 4 cycles. Tell me how you feel in the chat box after these 4 cycles. So we're going to inhale. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fill those lungs up. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Focus on that air, what it feels like. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now take a nice, slow, deep breath. Exhale it out, shake it out. And how do you feel? Let me know in the chat box. How do you feel? And again, this is widely used with high performance athletes, Navy SEALs, elite business people. And it's how you calm the body prior to a stressful event. Now, you can do this in a conference call when people are driving you batty, in a Zoom session, in a WebEx session. You can do this driving a car for most cases. And you're not going to feel as good watching a YouTube video as if you actually did this. And you might need to do it a lot longer. But, it's a matter of we've got to find the right style of breathing for us. Now, I use a lot of this. Now, personally, I respond best to Ujjayi breathing, which again comes from India. And this is a different kind of breathing. This is a long, slow, deep breath, followed by a slow exhale. And I'll demonstrate it. In yoga, they call it breathing with sound. And it's typically used to heat up the body. So what happens is we breathe in, and then we close the back of our throat. And they call it, and you'll hear it. I'll demonstrate it for you. Inhale. Now that ha is coming from the back of the throat. Now I'll actually do this for a minute. And if you notice, look at what's going to happen to my forehead. It might look a little sweaty. I can feel it. Not only can I feel my temperature rise, I can feel the sweat on me. Now, most people won't notice it that fast, but I've been practicing this now for 17 years. So let's kind of try it all. We're going to take a slow, deep inhale. Now, when we do this, I want you to do the following. I want you to change the way you're looking at the world. I don't want you staring grossly at the screen. I want you to try to create what's called a fuzzy gaze. Just kind of zoom out where everything is just sort of partially in focus. Almost like a drunk vision. I've never drank that much, but people tell me they get drunk and they get blurry vision. That's what we're going for. So soften your gaze. We'll take a slow inhale together. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Now, how many of you noticed that? I can see the different expression on Chris's face and Alonzo's face. It's obvious to me because I know them well. But how about the rest of you? Now, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a focal point for the brain. There's all kinds of meditation. There's a concept of a transcendental meditation where somebody gives you a mantra, something you repeat. Om, 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 and you repeat this in your mind for hours. Or Cindy the cat, Cindy the cat, Cindy the cat, Cindy the cat. It really doesn't matter. In transcendental meditation, you pay like $10,000 and they give you a word and you repeat it yourself. Very common with a lot of actors, but that's the key. Yes, you may notice some tingling with this. Absolutely. You may notice, as Tyrone said, some tearing in your eyes. And sometimes that actually happens when your body releases some emotions that have been pent up. Very common for these kinds of things when you especially get there. But the point is that's what we're talking about. We're just taking a distraction. And there's a lot of techniques that you have. Let's talk about yoga. What is yoga really? It's actually a breathing meditation. Wait, huh? What? I go to this class. They make me stick my arms over my head for the next hour. Guess what? Why are they doing this? Is this stressful, holding your arms over your head? Yeah, it is. And here's what they're trying to get you to do. Now, the point is, if you get into this uncomfortable position and you can learn to be comfortable, you can deal with anything. I practice yoga every day. I get into these stances. One is like a horse stance. It's called goddess pose, but it's like a horse stance for martial arts. And you hang out in there for 5 minutes. Believe me, your legs are going to burn in 20 seconds. Most of you won't be able to do it for 30 seconds. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, if you get there, when you're done, you'll be relaxed. I'm a fan of Ashtanga yoga. You know what's really cool about Ashtanga yoga? It takes about 90 minutes to finish the sequence, and every breath is counted for and pre-prescribed. And I'm not going to do a full sun salutation, but it'll be something like this. Yekam inhale, Dway exhale, Trini inhale, Chaturanga exhale. Literally speaking, every single breath for the 90 minutes is counted and planned for. I could walk into my good friend Todd McLaughlin at Native Yoga, best yoga studio in the country that I've ever seen, in case you ever want to learn yoga. And they're in Juno Beach, Florida. But I can walk into Todd's class, stressed, if I was. Within 5 minutes of that Ashtanga Ujjayi breathing, I don't remember anything other than I'm balancing on one foot with my leg, in front of me, standing. I can't remember anything else because I'm totally relaxed. In fact, we get so relaxed, they call it yoga brain. And I'm like, what's yoga brain? They're like, when you can't even remember stuff and you forget it and you leave your yoga mat because you're so calm and blissfully happy. I'm like, yeah, I have yoga brain. And I've lost lots of yoga mats because of it. But, the point is that's what we're talking about. We're trying to calm you down. So when you're in that big interview, you're calm. When you're on that sales call, you're calm. When someone tries to kill you, you're calm. When you're on the way to work and there's a car accident in front of you and you can't get there, you're calm. When someone cuts you off at work, you're calm. When someone cuts you off directly in front of you, gets out of their car and starts pounding with their fist on their windows, you can politely say to the person, I'm sorry I offended you. Please, don't make this more of nothing. And then if they attack you, guess what? You're prepared to respond. You're not even stressed. And you're calm. And it's really hard to argue with a calm person. It really is. I actually had a neighbor in Princeton, New Jersey. Still have my house there, although I mostly live in Florida. And she ran up to me with this aggressive body language and a look like this in her face. And I look at that. My mother-in-law was with me. He was like the cutest thing in the world. And my mother-in-law says, she don't look happy because she speaks Greek. And I said, no, she doesn't look happy at all. Well, the woman proceeds to come up to me. And her whole goal was to yell at me. And do you know why she wanted to yell at me? Because a pregnant cat came to my house in the backyard. And I opened a can of tuna and fed the pregnant cat because I figure if an animal's stray, you got to take care of it. And I fed the pregnant cat. The cat had kittens. I've fed her, all her friends, and all the kittens. So by the time I was done, there was 27 different cats that came to my house every single day. And believe me, if a hungry human child comes to my house, I'm going to feed him. If a hungry dog comes to my house, I'm going to feed him. If a hungry kitten comes to my house, I'm going to feed him. So this woman proceeded to scream at me. She said, you're feeding the cats. And I said, yes, they're hungry and homeless. Someone has to. And she says, but if you feed these cats, and she's screaming and her hands are like this, we're going to get more of them. And I said, I consider it a blessing to have more kittens. What a wonderful animal. And she said, the other day there were paw prints on my windshield. I said, that must have felt great. How happy you must have been knowing there was a cute little kitten on your windshield. And she says, but if you don't feed them, we won't have them. They'll die off. And I said, well, I protect life and I want to help life. I used to practice medicine. How would you feel if you were hungry? Wouldn't you want someone to be kind enough to feed you? Well, she did that. And I continued to talk about, taking care of those that needed it. And she had this look. She's like, all right, whatever. And my mother-in-law says she don't like cats, which is true. But the point is she was ready to be violent. And you know what? My perspective was they're homeless cats. They're hungry. They need to be fed. You should see the animals I feed. If they look lost, if they look hungry, if there's a weak animal, I'll take care of it, take it to the vet, pay for it. I just love animals, but that's me. But the point was she couldn't even deal with it. When I was younger, working in the hospital, I got pulled to a mental health ward. I'm pretty big. I'm a lot bigger in real life than I actually look on the screen. So people thought that I'd be there to protect the person. I walked into a room. He was committed to a mental institution because he tried to kill 6 people. And somehow along the line, he ended up in a mental institution, not prison. And my job was to make sure that he didn't attack anybody. And I walked in the room. The guy was like 300 pounds, full of muscle, on every kind of steroid you can imagine. And he's like, are you the equalizer? I'm like, I'm here to play chess with you. I heard you like chess. He's like, I do like chess. I'm like, let's play chess. At the end of the day, we could actually see what his real issue was, but I couldn't get there if I wasn't calm. So, that's my perspective of being calm. And, well, obviously talking to more things, but that's why there's yoga and meditation. So stress is not a problem. How you manage that stress. And I'll give you some examples. I've been shot at. And I got to go at work when I was in the fire department in some of the dangerous areas. There were 2 of us. I worked with this wonderful paramedic firefighter. At the end of the day, when that occurred, she was a wreck. I was not a wreck. I was like, okay, somebody shot at me. It happened. We defended ourselves. We dropped off the gun that we disarmed the person with at the local police station, took the grandmother to the hospital, and the grandmother survived. But that was just life. But if I wasn't calm, I would have panicked. The grandmother would have died of the breathing issue. I wouldn't have been able to help her, and I would have gotten shot because I wouldn't have been calm enough to know how to use some Israeli Krav Maga defense techniques, where I moved it, dragged it, and took the gun away, and then took it to the police station and dropped it off. But, if you're calm, you can deal with anything. When you meet with that client and they have an outage, believe me, clients are going to have outages, and you're calm, you're the person taking them to lunch, buying them the drinks, buying them sushi, calling the people, bringing them in to salvage that relationship. When you did something stupid and you offended your spouse, believe me, if you're married long enough, ultimately you'll say something or do something stupid, even if you don't mean it, and that person comes in like an angry lion, you'll be able to hopefully fix it. And if you don't know how to fix it, you'll be calm enough in your job that you'll earn enough money that you can buy and spend whatever it takes to fix it. Because whatever the case is, these things matter. So let me go back to you and Chris and Alonzo for a little bit, and then we can get into some other topics, answer questions, those kinds of things.
Well, I think Alonzo's probably got some. I know Alonzo prepared for this. So just so everybody knows, I'm not prepared for this. I'm not prepared for Head in the Clouds. We've been away for 3 weeks. I had 17 people at my house for an entire week. I'm just here. I'm just along for the ride. But Alonzo did preparation and Mike did preparation. So I'm just here to provide comic relief today. Alonzo, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, sounds good, Chris. One of the things I compiled some lists because okay, not only am I a husband, so if you know, you know, but I'm also a father. So if you know, you know. So when it comes to stress and how to mitigate that, you got your honeydews, you're a problem solver, and there's no hours of operation for that to happen. And we're not even talking about the usual work time where things happen, you got to solve, you got to strategize, you got to work with people to get things done. So I say all that to say that there are a few questions that I have for you, Mike.
Sure.
And the first question would be, how do you identify stress triggers and how do you avoid them?
Well, that takes time.
Yes, please and thank you.
So, first, that one's going to take time. So, you have to know yourself, for one thing. Now, here's the reality most people don't know themselves. And if I asked Chris right now, what is the fastest speed you can run? And how quickly can you run a 40-meter sprint? Could you answer that?
Absolutely not. I haven't
Right.
done a 40 since I was in high school.
Now, if I asked you how many times you could bench press 225 before it starts to burn, and then how many more can you do after it burns? Do you know?
Absolutely not. Again, I have not done that since high school.
Right. Now, if I also told you, do you truly know when you're stressed? The answer to the average person is probably not. They know when they feel sick enough that they need a drink. That's when most people know they're stressed. Or when they have to shower 3 times a day because they can't stop sweating. So part of it is knowing yourself. Here's the good news. There's lots of ways to create this mind-body awareness. I'll tell you how I learned. Martial arts, which is, again, a meditation, if you really think about it. In martial arts, I learned how fast I could hit and until I reached my limit. In yoga, I can tell you exactly how long I can do something. I can tell you exactly how many of anything I can do because I pushed myself to the limit. And when you push yourself to the limit, you follow your breaking points. When you work out in your limit, for the most part, you start to get nauseous. When you're getting closer to your limit, you throw up. And at some point, but I'm not recommending that. But, that's one way to find your limit. Another way is to keep a journal. That's what we advise people in medicine. Keep a journal. How are you feeling? And I'm a big believer in cognitive behavior therapy. I use a lot of that with my students. Again, it's used with Navy SEALs. Again, it's used with Olympic athletes, and it's widely used in medicine. And I studied that during my clinical rotations at the University of Pennsylvania Medical Center, where they invented it. And every time you have an emotion, a happiness, a sadness, a stress, they make you write down what you're thinking of and then analyzing your thought. And in most cases, it'll be an irrational thought that's making you there, making you that way. So there's that. Now you can observe certain things. Am I sweating? If I am sweating in a chair and it's 70 degrees in my room, or is it 97 degrees outside in Florida with the sun beating down on your head? Then you should be sweating. There's that. You can use a heart monitor. You can baseline your heart rate. Know what it is when you're relaxed. Know what it is when they're there. You can also measure the sweatiness of your palms. It's called galvanic skin response, and there's tools that you can get by this. And there's these biofeedback tools that you can actually do, that you can actually use. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. You've got to create a sense of body awareness. Yoga will create body awareness because I promise you, these positions are weird, strange contortions. And you'll know what you can do and what you can't do, but you won't know that until you do them. So that's one of those things. So that's one way to do it. Exercise is great because you know exactly how fast you can run. And you know where your stress point is, you know where your relaxation points are. I generally say stationary bikes or Airdynes are a great way to do it. Why? Because it's very hard to get hard. But please, no exercise until you ask a doctor. Make sure it's safe for you to exercise. But those are a way to do it. But keeping a journal, literally knowing how you feel. And to put it into context, there was a medication that was widely prescribed in the anti-aging world with regards to hormone replacement. And it made people feel much better. It was just a matter of when. When this medication was prescribed to people that needed it, that were athletes in their life, I literally had the patients that would get a shot in our office, that would call inside of 2 hours. Mike, I already feel better. And I had other patients that didn't notice it for 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, they're like, Mike, I feel better. Now, why did it take some more time than others to notice? The level of awareness they had of their own system. So really getting to any elite kind of place, what are we talking about? It takes body awareness. So kind of keep those in the back of your mind. So
So you just talked a lot about being aware of your body and the way it reacts in stress. So what are your thoughts about? So here, this is something that I've done that I've found helpful, and it's similar to the journaling, but what I do is at the end of the day. Unfortunately, it can be really late sometimes, but at the end of the day, I sit and do nothing and reflect literally on everything from the point that I woke up to what I'm doing right then. And basically just, was this a positive or a negative feeling? Just so it's along the same lines as journaling, but not exactly in real time, but on a consistent basis. I think it's along the same lines as being familiar with your body, but more being familiar with your thoughts and how you feel.
yeah.
Because feelings, I could talk all day long about how feelings can impact your thoughts and your stress level. You know, got to remind everybody, feelings aren't facts. But what are your thoughts about something like that?
I think it's great. As long as you look through it and then you analyze. This
Right.
went well. This didn't go well. When it didn't go well, what could I have done better or what could I have done differently? What did go well? Why do I think it went well? What things lined up so you learn? So that post-mortem at the end of the day is an incredibly good idea. I do something very similar. And that's how I actually learn. I take the time to learn, but then after that, I still need to calm myself down. So for me, it's yoga. Now, you guys, Chris and Alonzo know better than anybody else when I don't get my yoga in.
We make Mike yoga.
Yeah.
And when I start, yeah, they make
people, some folks will give them a timeout, but for Mike, go do some yoga right now.
Go do some yoga, go to the gym, go work out, Mike. You're not you. And there is that. So, it's key. And you've got to know your limitations. And I know full well that my pain is managed best better when I get my daily yoga and meditation and sauna time in, which I typically do most days. But that's the key. If you've got a good recovery routine, you can recover from just about anything. If your recovery team is good. Normal bodybuilder goes to the gym, they lift some weights, they're sore. A pro athlete moves 3 times the weight at 30% less body weight. And when they're done, they do hot cold plunges and cold plunges. They get a massage, they get stretched out. They're ready to go. It's the recovery is better. So, there's all kinds of ways you can do this. Martial arts, hard style, taekwondo, shotokan, kung fu, hard style arts, soft style arts. Tai Chi. Tai Chi is actually a very scary, very dangerous, lethal martial art if it's practiced correctly. Or it can just be a dance based upon how it's executed. But any of these techniques and tactics are really good. So find something that works for you. I don't even care if you go in a closet, lock the door, and start screaming. If it calms you down.
Yeah.
But you've got to try, and try again. My body spent physical activities. I was deadlifting 700 pounds in high school. I squatted 500 pounds in high school. Me, I'm a physical guy. I need a physical movement style. But there's all forms of meditation. There's a Buddhist meditation walk where you go out there and you walk, you empty your mind and you try and observe as many things that are possible out there. Great, if that works for you. If you can sit in a chair, close your eyes and say Om for an hour straight, and that works for you, great. If you're like me, you need to move a little bit. I'm not good sitting in a chair. This is not a good place for me. I have a desk job, right? So for me, it's yoga. I actually tried Tai Chi, but it hurt my knees very badly because I like Tai Chi and Qigong as well. But, you've got to pick the form that works for you. So whatever the case is, try something, but be present in what you do. And I think that's really a lot of what occurs. Being present. You have to see it. You know, when I hold conversations with people, I know who's there and who's not there. You call somebody on the phone and it sounds like they're not there. I end the conversation as quickly as I can. I'm not going to waste my time. If they're in it with me, they're there, and I know they're there. And if it doesn't sound like they're there, you know, when you're ready to, when you're able to focus, give me a call back. But focus is there. Now we're going to bring in another expert on these topics, and we're going to talk about focus, because focus is the key to winning and winning big. But I'm going to save that for my meditation coach, my yoga coach, which is Todd McLaughlin. He's a rock star. He's over there at Native Yoga. I'm going to bring him in soon for all of you, because he's helped me over the years. He's worked with me on a private one-on-one basis for 17 years, and I've taken his class, and I took their 500-hour yoga instructor program. So for me, that's really there. Because otherwise, you're going to get brain fog. You're going to walk around with it. You're going to be tired. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be stressed. You're going to have stress hormones like cortisol, which is going to make you fat, raise your blood sugar, which is going to then drop, which is going to make you hungry, and you're going to be eating like the Cookie Monster, which is okay if you're a Cookie Monster. My wife loves the Cookie Monster, but if that's not your goal, you got to change it. And then we can align different activities. How about you, Alonzo?
How about you, Alonzo? What?
We have some thoughts here.
Yeah, well, yeah, I definitely can roll it back a few times. I know I'm stressed out, and because I get an eye twitch, so my left eye will start hopping around like a rabbit, and I can't control it. So I said, okay, I need to step back. I need to do things. So my prescription for stress is go on a run, or I like go to the gym. I like lifting heavy stuff. So I really like to kind of take my frustration out on the metal, and being able to pick it up and do whatever I want, and whether it's squats or pecs or whatever, lower bottom half, it helps me because I'm not a sit down guy. I can't, you know, and my son, he's the exact, he cannot be still, you know, and he needs to be active. I need to be active. You know, it could be ADHD, who knows, you know, but it's my medicine for focusing on how I can alleviate any extra energy. And then I also think that a lot of people, there's a lot of pent up energy that people are not utilizing. We're not meant to just sit at the desk all day long and glare at the screen and use just your mind. I think a lot of that comes from your body is not able to respond in a physical sense, and you're not listening to your body, and then it manifests in different ways. So I strongly recommend people go for a walk. Just if you're not able to really do a lot of physicality, just, you know, walk around the room, stand in place and do walks. Just something where you can alleviate some of all this, you know, extra energy that you might have that manifests in stress. But, you know, Mike and I, we have a lot of parallels, and I've trained in martial arts, you know, over the course of years in a lot of different ways. And so, you know, even my wife, sometimes if I get, you know, I need a breakout, I may break out into what you call jurus, or it could be called katas in different disciplines, to just get an idea of how I can just get the stress off of me by utilizing that energy in the different ways, and let that stuff, the less you think about your stress, the more you're gonna realize it's not there anymore. You're gonna be able to handle that, remove it from your psyche and from your physical. So these are just some of the things that I think about as well. But one of the things that I want to know from you, Mike, is can stress manifest in improved nutritional exercise, you know, or rather what kind of food do you need to focus on, or what food creates more stress for people? Is that something that you can quantify for us?
Well, I mean, everybody has a different tolerance to stress and pain. I will tell you, I had someone that was actually in a very bad accident. He fractured his entire cervical spine, and his carotid artery was spitting out blood like this as I was talking to him.
Wow.
And as I'm talking to him, I've got a pressure dressing. I'm sealing it. I'm like, we're going to the hospital. I don't need to go to the hospital, sir. I'm feeling just fine. And I said, I know you feel fine. You're tough. You're strong. I said, we're going to go to the hospital. You've got about 10 minutes to live. You just don't know it yet. Please trust me. And drove to the hospital like this, got him there on time. They did surgery and he survived. Now, I'm not joking. An hour later, somebody dialed 911 because they had a chipped nail. They bumped into their nail and it hurt and was bleeding a little bit, and they were overwhelmed. I had to give this person IV Valium on the way to the hospital because they had such a panic situation over their boo-boo that they literally thought they were going to die. But the point is I see it every single day. So everybody's level is there. Now, you mentioned diet. So let's think about that. It's the level of stress that we can manage that's different. Does nutrition affect it? Sure does. If your diet is full of highly refined junk food, bad carbohydrates like white flour, like sugar, like high fructose corn syrup, like white rice, what happens is we have high blood sugar spikes, which causes our bodies to produce a lot of insulin, which then drops our blood sugar, and then we're running around like this. We're cold, we're sweaty, and we're stressed. So to some degree, nutrition has it. If, when we eat these bad foods, it messes up with our hormones too. And our hormones change. For example, certain foods, like a lot of alcohol, will reduce testosterone levels by activating the estrogen synthase enzyme in both men and women. When testosterone goes down in men, they get very fatigued, they feel very weak, and they get very stressed and can't manage stress the same. So alcohol can make you feel good in the short term, but ultimately long term. Same thing for marijuana. Marijuana, for people that take testosterone, will lower their testosterone, as do opioids, which again, short-term relief, bigger problem. Does that mean that opioids shouldn't be prescribed for cancer patients? No, when appropriate. Does that mean that medical marijuana doesn't have its benefits? No, it does. But the key is, anytime you take a medication, it's a judicious poison. Does the cost outweigh the risk? So, is there nutrition? Sure. So small, well-balanced, more frequent meals to keep blood sugar stable will help curb anxiety. If we don't have the right nutrients in our diet, the right B vitamins, for example, we get more stressed. If we have the wrong fatty acids in our diet, too many omega-6 fatty acids, again, we also get more stress. Certain things like omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, have been shown to increase relaxation response, vasodilate people, meaning lower blood pressures, and some of those things. So, yes, diet can play a role. I'd say it's more about how we manage stress than a diet thing, but nutrition is the key to health. When I used to practice internal medicine, I used to say to my wife the other day, and I said, look, if I could get people to lose weight, stop smoking, and exercise, I probably wouldn't need to do much more for at least 50% of my patients. So, yeah.
So I want to do some of the comments that have come up in the chat box here. So I'm going to go a little out of order because I'm going to go with Igor's comment first, and I want to say something quickly before Mike tackles it, because I know Mike is going to want to tackle it. So I'm preemptively telling you, Mike, let me say something before you tackle it.
Okay.
Sadly, in many situations, being calm is a bad response. If you control yourself, people try you worse. When you start behaving aggressively, people try you better. So I'm going to say, yeah, there's situations where people want to push your buttons and see how far they can push you. I know Mike's had experience with this in his previous careers, and I know that I've had experience with it in the hospitality industry. You think it's easy to stay calm when you're working the front desk and you're being cursed at and yelled at and called all kinds of horrible names because somebody didn't clean their room today? Oh, yeah. Try staying calm in that situation. And when you have people throwing stuff at you, yeah, it's the more calm you are, the more angry that person's going to get sometimes. It is absolutely the case. Now, how do you address this other than just continuing to stay calm? Sometimes you have to change your environment. How do you do that? Well, maybe you have to change employment. Maybe you have to change careers. People, places, and things. You can control every single one of those. And I know what type of work environment you're in, Igor, and your type of work environment is definitely going to have a lot more likely opportunities for people to be aggressive than the environment that you're trying to get to. So working on changing your environment will get you farther away from those situations where your calmness can lead people to try to keep pushing. I can tell you, as soon as I got out of the hospitality environment, lo and behold, I don't have people try to push my buttons when I'm staying calm. Who'd have thought? It just stopped. I can't tell you the last time that I had somebody react aggressively to my calmness. Has not happened since I've not been in the hospitality industry. So what changed? Wasn't me. It was the environment, people, places, and things. So I wanted to say that. I'd love to hear what Mike has to say about this, because you know as well as I do, Mike, there's people out there that'll just keep on going.
See, Igor, you can still be calm and strong at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. Let's say I were to have an employee that were to start screaming at me. I could very calmly say, I'd like you to think about this. Do you really want to say another word? And if they continue to yell at me, I could say, well, I warned you, you're fired. Now, I'm not going to get aggressive. I'm not going to insult that person, but it's addressed. I will tell you, I was at a Gold's Gym right before my injury in Palm Beach Gardens. And I was preparing for a 10-day training session with the most elite martial artists in the world. And it was going to be 16 hours per day of training for at least 10 days. And when I went to the gym, there was this silly bodybuilder. He was doing this kind of thing. He was doing this thing in the mirror, and he's flexing. So I put some dumbbells. I was basically holding a set of 50-pound dumbbells out like this for about 10 minutes. It's a mental toughness exercise called the crucifix exercise in the strongman world. So I was doing this, and he's doing his bicep curls and flexing in the mirror. And I did put them in like the 45s versus the 50 because I didn't want to get away from his flexing routine. Now, this maniac who was all hopped up on steroids started screaming at me. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. It looked like you were working on your posing for a show. I didn't want to get in your way and distract you. I'll move them for you. Now, he was so out of his mind on steroids, he proceeded to scream at me. I put my hands in a defensive position just like this, and I said, look, I'm sorry I offended you. What can I do to make it right for you? As I'm doing this, there are people that are literally running around to this guy saying, you don't understand. Mike's the strongest guy in this gym, and he spent his whole life preparing for martial arts. Please leave Mike alone. And he's getting more and more aggressive. And I finally said in a very calm way, look, please, I don't want to have to hurt you. I've spent my life preparing to kill. That's the way I've trained in these martial arts. I like to heal. Is there any way we can get out of this as friends? And he saw that I was calm, I was gentle, and the threat went away. And the guy changed his attitude completely. So I was still strong, I was still firm, but I stayed calm. Had I lost control, I potentially could have struck that person, hurt that person, had legal problems for the rest of my life. So there's a difference between weakness and strength. You can be calm and be strong very simply. You'll run into conflicts with people at work. Just be calm. What'll ultimately happen is at some point, it's not going to be on your timeline. They're going to see the leader, and then they're going to see the crazy nut job. The crazy nut job gets laid off at the next layoff. The leader gets promoted. So, there is that. But you do, when you communicate with people, have to match to some degree what they're doing. So it's a balance, but it's not that being calm or being nice is the problem. Lots of people assume that if you're nice, you're stupid. But that's not necessarily true either. You can just be nice, and then people can find out very quickly. So, it's that. But for me, I stay calm. I need to be able to have logical reasoning for everything I do. And you don't have that with your calm.
All right. So Mark had a question. What enabled you to cultivate the mental fortitude to persevere through physical discomfort and discover your limits?
Okay, well, Mark, it actually happened by accident, and it's going to and it actually helped me, and I'll tell you why. So I trained in martial arts. Now, there's two ways you can train in a martial arts, and you can do all these things. Well, that's martial arts. And as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. So what Mike Tyson was saying is, once your brain gets short-circuited, you've got nothing. So let's talk about that. The martial arts that I trained in, you know how in normal martial arts you get stabbed by a rubber knife. We trained with those 100,000 volt stun guns. So every time I got hit, whoa, and you got educated to not want to get hit again. In the Israeli martial arts that I come from, you cover up your head and people just punch you for minutes at a time to get practice with it, to get tougher. So when I was younger, in order to have harder hands so that I didn't break my hands, I used to punch wooden boards. Alonzo probably did it too as a kid to toughen up his knuckles. I also kicked the side of a tree to make my shins a little tougher so that was there. And I was always in pain. So for that, I was there. Now, when I had reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which was a level of pain that I never even dreamed was possible, I walked into the pain management doctor and they said, "Would you like a morphine pump?" And I said, "No, I don't want to become an addict." And he says, "But you have pain." And I said, "Yes, but if I take this drug for 10 days around the clock, I'll be addicted to it." "Now you'll be dependent upon it." I said, "Dependent, addicted, it doesn't matter. I don't want this." And he said, "How are you going to survive?" And I said, "I'll find a way to be tougher." So when I had this, I spent some time, I took some training from some Navy SEALs that had a mental toughness training program. Mark Devine runs a really good one called SEAL Fit. He's got an unbeatable mind program. And they would teach you how to cultivate a tougher mindset. And he used a lot of yoga. He used a lot of meditation techniques, a lot of visualization techniques, and they were quite healthy. But because I trained for martial arts and combat arts my entire life, I was used to working out until there was pain. So, there's that. Doesn't have to be Krav Maga, could be Kempo, could be Jiu-Jitsu, could be anything. You can literally just sit in a deep squat and be there. But as part of the martial arts that I had studied, they used to call it mental training. And that was to teach you how to be comfort in pain. Because unfortunately, our enemies don't just kiss us and say it's good to see you, or they try to attack you. So that's how I did it. And then it became critical for me. Mark, if I tell you that every single day, just to be able to work, when I take that first step in the morning, it feels like nails are going through my foot and then somebody took a blowtorch to my foot. It takes me roughly 90 minutes of exercises to be able to walk down the stairs of my house in the morning. That's followed by about 60 minutes of yoga and about another 30 minutes of stretching in a 160-degree sauna. That's what my life starts like. Some days my eyes are so dried out, I'm blinking all day funny over it, but it's part of my life. And, I'm here after that injury that I have. I'm lucky to be alive. And I view each day as a blessing. So for me, pain's just a part of life. But we all have a struggle. It doesn't matter what it is. For some people, it's financial. For other people, it's a mental issue. For other people, it's their job. For other people, it's pain. I just view life as just full of a series of struggles, and how we respond to that is really what defines us. Mark always has great questions. Mark is incredible. One day I'm going to figure out, and maybe Mark's going to help me teach some networking.
All right. So Valerie says, as an internalizer, how do you empty out the negative emotions that are affecting your productivity? Ooh, that's a good one.
Okay, so Valerie is a very highly educated man, super smart, and a phenomenal architect. And like me, Valerie seems to be an empath that feels other people's things. So the key for me, Valerie, is I actually take every thought that I have and I think it through. So there's 10 cognitive errors. You can look them up. They're called cognitive distortions. And all people make it. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she was wonderful. She used to be afraid to fly. And she knew that I would fly 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles a year in my architecture job. And she would say, "Don't fly, it's dangerous." And I'd say, "How many planes crashed last year?" And she'd say, "One." I said, how many millions of flights occur every day or every year? And I'd say, no, compare that to walking across the street, riding a motorcycle, or driving a car. I don't care. I'm afraid to fly. It's dangerous. And, that was a thinking error. And if she had looked at it and then looked at the statistics, she would have said, it's not dangerous. Now, when I was a kid, I was not exactly cool trying to get a date. I was horrible about it. I've dated 3 girls and I married the 3rd girl. That's how little experience I actually have with it. I went up to the first girl. She said, no way, dude. And I went, okay, this isn't good. I went up to the next girl. She said, ooh, yuck. And I went, okay, this is not a good idea. And I thought about asking the 3rd girl. And guess what? I was terrified. And then I realized the cognitive errors. And it's a thinking error to predict the future and assume just because I had bad luck in the past, the next one's going to be there. So ask the next girl. Yes, Mike, I would love to. What happened was she was the right girl for me. And, those are thinking errors. Here's another big thinking error. It's called all or nothing thinking. Where if you don't have everything perfect, it's a failure. That's not life. In life, how often are things completely perfect? Almost never. But all or nothing thinking is another one. So every time I have an emotion, Valerie, I actually look at the thoughts that I think about and I think about the rationality of them. Are they rational or are they not? Usually, if I don't feel good, it's because I had an irrational thought, which caused me to go down an emotional cascade, and then they're there. So I actually love the book Feeling Good by David Burns. It's not that expensive. It's probably an $8 book. At one point, I would buy 20 of them at a time. And every time a patient came in and they wanted Xanax or Klonopin or lorazepam, before I would prescribe that to them, I would say, I need you to read this book and I need you to follow these exercises for a month before I get you addicted to an anxiolytic drug. I said, so read this and come back. Half of them got better. So, Valerie, as you know, there's some training in our course on cognitive behavior therapy, but that's what I use. I use that. That's how I get rid of my emotions. And then I follow it up with some yoga and or meditation. And I absolutely love it. Great question.
So Rohan wants to know, why do you prefer yoga to Tai Chi and other techniques?
Rohan, I love Tai Chi, but it hurts my knees so badly. I've got very arthritic knees from powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting and martial arts. So Tai Chi doesn't work for my body. I love Tai Chi. I love Qigong. Very similar. I love martial arts. I love yoga. I love meditation. Pick the one that resonates best with you. For me, it's yoga at this stage of my life and meditation, but they're all good.
All right. And so Wealth Stop says, I find that brain fog occurs when I'm stressed. Yep. And as a result, struggle to focus or concentrate. What tips or exercises would you recommend to help improve memory and concentration?
Well, memory and concentration are often two different things. So concentration, you've got to find a way to stay calm and focused and in the moment. So we talked about today, we talked about box breathing. If you hadn't seen it, maybe you came in afterwards, I would look at that. We also talked about some ujjayi breathing. Those are two things that I typically go to during the day to help me maintain. When I'm done or beginning before that starts, I practice yoga. I specifically like Ashtanga yoga. It's my preferred form. I don't really practice Ashtanga yoga anymore after my injury because it's too much on my foot. But the Ashtanga yoga, that linking that breath to movement, is extremely good. I also strongly recommend exercise, but we talk about exercise. It's a different kind of exercise. And here's what I mean. You can be sitting here doing bicep curls all day and you can be thinking about the things that are stressing you. Bicep curls don't make you strong anyway. Now, if you're going to practice an Olympic lift like a clean and jerk or a snatch, or you're going to go squat 800 pounds, I promise you, you're not thinking about anything else. and you've just emptied your brain, and then you've got good concentration and good focus. So I like big exercises. I love yoga. I love martial arts. I love the clean and jerk and the snatch. It has to be trained. I like the squat. I like the deadlift. I like the bench press. I like the push press. I like heavy duty weighted lunges. I don't do them the way I used to, but I think they're great. I like pull ups with 100 pounds around your waist, bar dips with 190 pounds around your waist. Anything where it's so big that 100% of your mental energy is forced for you to do it. Those are the things that I like doing. These kind of cable body sculpting exercises, they're not for me. But, those are the things that made me calm. Now, I had an injury. 13 doctors told me I'd never walk again. I've got 5 herniated discs. I've got rotator cuff tears in both shoulders, labral tears in both hips, and arthritis from being able to deadlift 700 pounds when I was in high school before I actually got strong. So, you can think about that. So when we get older, we have to tune and we have to adapt what we do. I'm just not 21 anymore, but it's okay. But that's what I do. But if you haven't seen it, please go back and look at the box breathing. Please go back and look at the Ujjayi breathing we did. And I'll tell you, go out there and try in a yoga class. I'll be honest about my introduction to yoga. I had been practicing martial arts for about 15 years, and I'm a big guy, and I couldn't get into certain splits and things they wanted me to do. And one of my martial arts instructors, she sentenced me to yoga. She says, "You will go to yoga 3 times a week to get that next belt." And I said, "Yes, ma'am. Where shall I go to yoga?" And she says, "I need you to go to Native Yoga, the best yoga studio in our area." And I said, "Okay." I walked into this Native Yoga. There was a woman, her name is Tamara McLaughlin. She's incredible. And I brought my wife because I was afraid to go in yoga studio. And she says, "Put your hands to heart center and say Om." And I looked at my wife. My wife looked at me and I went, "Oh my God, what kind of a crazy cult did we walk into?" Well, 10 minutes into that yoga class, I hadn't felt that good in years. My mind was calm. I was balancing on one foot with my other leg in the air. And I was just breathing and I felt so good. I went home that night. I had my salmon, I had my broccoli, and I had some fruit. And I hadn't felt that good when I was younger. The next day I felt better, and yoga's been a part of my life ever since. That was 17 years ago, maybe a little more now. And it's changed my life forever. So yoga is big for me.
I think one of the things that it's an obvious thing, but are people getting enough sleep?
Oh, yeah.
Are we getting some folks, you get different definitions. You need 8 hours, you need 6, you need 9 hours or whatever, but making sure that you have the ability to get the rest you need. Because for me, when I was younger, the less sleep I got, the crankier I got. So how is that going to manifest into your life? So being able to goes back to the triggers of knowing your body, but also getting enough sleep. But one question that I'm interested in is that, Mike, you have a supportive environment for mitigating stress. So do you, Chris. What about those who don't have the environment where they can, or the support structure where they can mitigate that risk? Where do they go? What can they do to get that stress off of them when maybe the stressful environment that they're living in possibly might be the source?
Well, sometimes you have to change your environment, but nobody can make you upset unless you allow them to.
Very true.
So there was a point in my life where I was in a rough area, surrounded by all kinds of negativity and aggression. And at the end of the day, I said, I'm just not going to be part of it. I worked with it. I dealt with it. But at the end of the day, I left. I didn't hang out with these people after work. I didn't do anything. I just literally got the heck out of there. So sometimes you have to change your environment. But the other side of it is trying not to let it drag you down. But let's talk about certain things. Now, I'm not talking about American interpretation of yoga, where people buy a $200 yoga mat and $200 of props and fancy yoga clothes. Yoga costs nothing. Nothing. You could buy a book from David Swenson on Ashtanga Yoga for $15. You could buy a cheap $5 mat. It's not going to be great, but you could use it. And you could do that for years. What a breathing exercise cost? Absolutely nothing. What does it cost to go out for a walk? Absolutely nothing. Now, there are people that can't literally go out for a walk because it's not safe. And they've got to do something else. But there's always something. Always something. But sometimes it's about changing your environment. When I heard Ivan speak, Ivan Tamba, and he talked about having a job where he was back in Cameroon, where he was carrying big, heavy blocks from one truck to another all day to $8 and change per day. That's hard. But what did he do? Found a way to get to America. He arrived to America homeless and pretty much penniless. He went to the church, found a place that he could actually live. And when he went there, he found a way to get some assistance to go to school, worked a full-time job, went to college, took our training, and now he's working at AWS as a solution architect. That's a guy that had everything working against him. Daniel Bosu. I spoke to his mother. She seemed like a sweet lady, but he had all kinds of challenges in his background, all kinds of struggles. But he's now at JP Morgan Chase as a solution architect. And he's the kind of kid that I wish was my own son because he's got a fire in him. I love the kid. But, and they were very lucky to hire him because he's awesome in every way. But lots of times we just have to change our environment. And actually, when I've worked with a lot of youth that comes from high incomes and troubled youth that comes from challenging environments as well. And you know what? Sometimes I told them they had to do what's called scissors therapy. And they're like, what do you mean? You got to cut out all these people from your life and start over again. And sometimes that's just what you have to do. They get rid of that influence. They get rid of that negativity. And what you can see people achieve is extraordinary. And you're muted there, Alonzo.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Chris, do you have any questions? Because I still got 3 more that I can jump into.
No, I'm just here. I'm just enjoying the conversation and the nuggets of information being dropped. If anybody can use stress management lessons, it's me. I will say, Freedom Lands has got it right here. Mike, your cat helps with stress. Absolutely.
My cat. And actually, let's talk about that. Pets are great for stress reduction. Now, I actually personally think the world needs more cats, but it could probably use more dogs and more parrots and everywhere in between. For me, it's very hard to be angry if I got a cat in my hands. Somebody said something to me that would potentially trigger me, and I don't have a chance to run through my cognitive behavior therapy thoughts yet. All of a sudden, Cindy looks at me, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And then she rubs up against me and she jumps in my lap and she looks at me with love. All I can think of is my sweet Cindy. How many, maybe I should get 2 or 3 more Cindys. And I'm trying to think about getting a rag doll or an Egyptian Mal for Hanukkah. But we'll see how my wife feels about that and how Cindy feels about it. Because Cindy's territorial, so I have to bring her to the breeders to see if she's okay with it.
Definitely.
What about, say for instance, Mike, I got a question.
Yeah.
When should people consider seeking professional help for stress management, and what resources are typically available in the workplace for that?
Well, let's separate the workplace from when should people seek help.
Okay.
I personally would not be seeking help from the workplace. I don't want my company to know anything about my health or wellness. Next time there's a layoff, I don't want them to see me as weak. Sad reality is the bottom 10% typically is those that get laid off. Not always. Sometimes, they get rid of back-end employees that are great, but typically it's the bottom 10%, the weakest. I don't want my employer to see me as weak. I'm going to go to the doctor if I'm stressed. So when stress is getting in the way of my life, time to see a physician, nurse practitioner, physician assistant. When I'm throwing up because I'm nervous, better go talk to somebody. when it overwhelms someone, go get professional help. When someone doesn't know how they can make it through the day, get professional help. When people have thoughts of harming themselves, get professional help. And when it seems beyond you, get professional help. And in general, when you get professional help, they're going to provide one of two treatments. They're either going to go down the cognitive behavior therapy path and mental relaxation exercises, whether they be autogenic meditation, breathing meditation, yoga, and they're going to recommend that if they're one side. Or they're going to be like, here's your pills. Here's your anxiolytic drugs, such as Xanax, Klonopin, or Ativan. Here are your antidepressants, like what do you call it, like Prozac or Zoloft or Cymbalta. Those kind of drugs are typically prescribed as well for these kind of situations. But personally, I always start with a mental health, not a mental health. I always start with a physician, a primary care doctor, and they can refer you to a mental health protection or not, or address it themselves. You got to have that coordinator, like that generic architect that you go to. And the generic architect says, I need a security architect, a network architect, a big data architect. That's what the internal medicine physician, nurse practitioner, and PA does. You go to them and they say, I need to send you to a psychologist for counseling, a psychiatrist for medication, or a neurologist or whatever it is. So always get professional help when there's a need, especially if somebody's overwhelmed.
And I know we talked a lot about how physical. And I think a lot, depending on what people's interests are, is maybe a hobby. It doesn't have to be a physical, but it's something that takes your mind to another place, that gives your mind a break from all the things that are a negative influence on your mind and your body and your psyche, to try to think about that. I always back to, I'm still an illustrator. I still like to draw. So if I have ideas about something that I've always worked on or whatever, I'll pull out the pencil in my drawing pad and I'll just sketch something out. Or if there's something interesting to people, whatever your hobbies or your interests are, make sure you take some time out of your day or on the weekend to give yourself a stress reliever, give yourself something to look forward to, whether it's at the end of the day or end of the week. I think it's important that being able to offload yourself, put all the stuff away, it can wait. Know that you're worthy of yourself, to give yourself that time to just relax. You've earned it. You've worked hard all week. Take a breather. Focus on what interests you. Like Chris. I know Chris loves sports. I know he loves to watch sports. I know, even though Chris is a strong data guy, and I'm sure Chris can turn that into an entertainment opportunity, knowing Chris.
We won't even go there. We won't even go there. I have the most random data sets that I've created because it's fun for me to create the data sets. Like,
there you go. See, there's something for everyone.
But you bring up a good point. So, I'm going to put this question up here. Anakin Cloudwalker asked, how do you make time for exercise routines and eating healthy when busy with lots of work? And it's directly tied to what you were just talking about. Add into this, not just these two things of exercise and eating healthy, but also doing things for yourself. So how do you make time? Well, that's how you do it. You make time. You have to know that you have to do it. Like, there's no question. Like, I know I probably push Mike's buttons when I do this, but like today, for example, we were talking about, like, Mike was fighting with our DNS host this morning for our website, and we had a live class at 10 o'clock, and it's 9:35, and Mike's fighting with them, and I say, Mike, you're going to be on time for class, and he said, I should be. I said, you will be. That's the level that you have to do with your exercise routines, your eating healthy, and making time for yourself. Not, I hope to do this. No, you will do this. I will do this. I will stop at 11:55 a.m. on Saturday so that I can turn it to all my football games that start at 12 o'clock. I'm ready to go. And all the way until 3 o'clock in the morning, because those freaking West Coast games stay up so late. But I will start watching football at 11:55 a.m.
But
because that's what I need to do for myself.
Yeah.
I will wake up at 6 a.m. because I have to wake up at 6 a.m. I will take a break at whatever time because I take breaks at different points depending on the day. But whatever day it is, same time every day, every week, unless something's happening. You have to do it. You cannot let yourself say, I hope to, I should, I might. No, I will. And if you don't, then you hold yourself accountable. I'm not saying go flog yourself or, do like the guy in the Da Vinci Code and start beating himself. No. But hold yourself accountable when you aren't able to do these things for yourself, like exercising, eating healthy, or just taking time to go watch some TV show, or taking time to go for a walk and just get to the outdoors, or whatever the thing that you need to do for yourself is. If you're not able to do it, hold yourself accountable and make it up. But don't let it become a consistent thing where you're always making it up.
Right.
So, but because it's so many people just fall into the trap of it's okay. It's okay.
And let's talk about efficiency and automation here. Do you know if I cook an omelet for me versus an omelet for me and my wife, it takes the same level of effort. So here's what I do. I can tell you what my Sunday looks like. My wife goes to Costco and she buys these big 2-pound bags of broccoli and she buys all these big vegetables. I bought 3 slow cookers for about $100 each. They're big giant ones. And I literally do. I take lean ground beef in one. I put chicken in another. I put fish in another with vegetables. And poof, I make about 15, 20 pounds of meat for the week. Meat and fish and vegetables for the week. At the same time, I boil a giant pot of slow cooked oatmeal because that's the only grain I occasionally eat. And I also take 3 dozen eggs and some turkey bacon and some olive oil, and I bake that into a casserole in the oven. Every day, chop it up, eat it in the microwave. My meals are there. Now you might say, Mike, but that's $300 for the slow cookers. And I'd say, yeah, but what do most people do? They go out to a restaurant and things get expensive real fast. Me, I'd rather purchase one thing one time and pay it off than have constant expenses bleeding me every single day of the week. Now, exercise. Let's think about it. How many hours do you watch TV out of curiosity? How many hours do you watch social media videos? How many hours do you do this? Most people that I know spend hours per day on these things. What's the average number of hours people watch on TV per week? It's a ridiculous number, like 20 or 20 some hours per week. Just don't do that. I focus on reading. Now, I'll be fair. I now have been watching The Vampire Diaries. I'm now 7 seasons into the show. I have no idea why I'm obsessed with it. But as soon as that's over, I'm going to go see the originals.
How are you 7 seasons in? There's not even 7 seasons.
No, there's 8.
There's 8?
8
oh my
seasons.
God. Oh my God.
I got one more season to go in this obsession with The Vampire Diaries.
I gave up. I couldn't keep going. 6 is like my limit.
My wife has gone away, so when she's gone, Cindy and I sit together and watch The Vampire Diaries. It's our sweet little thing together. And then Cindy falls asleep right over here next to me every single night. So, it's that. But, the point is I'd give up TV time. I don't go to Facebook. I don't go to Instagram. I don't even have a TikTok account. I know at some point I'm going to create one, but I spend all my time literally doing things that I can say I can see the outcomes of. But we all have time, money. You can invest it in your future and your education, or you could go to buy a new iPhone. Calories. You can eat broccoli or you can eat cookies. Choice is yours. You can take your money and invest it for your future, or you can spend it on a vacation. I can't tell you what's the right decision for you. You have to figure it out, and that's going to be based upon your goals. All I can say is you're going to need resources and building blocks to get to any destination, and how you spend your time, effort, and money will ultimately determine how far you get. But the choice is where you want to use it. And there's no right or wrong answer. What matters is the right answer is what's going to make you happiest in your goal and your journey, which is unique to you.
Yeah.
Very true.
So we got a lot of questions or comments in here. I think we should take the rest of the time to get to them. If that's
I'm
all
happy
right
with
with
that.
you, Alonzo.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Let's roll.
All right. So Emmanuel says, I really like martial arts. Is it okay to join the art when one is the 50-ish age range and still maximize the benefits?
Absolutely.
I would
50
argue
years young?
you actually get more benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I practiced martial arts when I was younger, I had a 70, I think he was 73 when he started. And it seemed like he was getting more out of it than anybody that was in there. And so, but Mike is the true martial artist here. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you might think about which art you want to do as you get older. For example, Taekwondo involves a lot of jumping. If you've got arthritic knees, I might not do Taekwondo, even though I love Taekwondo and spent years studying it. You might do something like Eskrima, which is Filipino, which is a great martial art and it has less crazy ranges of motion. You might do something like Krav Maga, which is taught all over the world, which is very practical and very good to do. You might find that you're interested in jiu-jitsu, either Brazilian jiu-jitsu or the traditional jiu-jitsu, and they're both good. So yeah, absolutely. I know martial artists that are in their 70s. I know a martial artist that's close to 80 years old, and I watched him perform recently, and it blew me away. So yeah, definitely. Martial arts are great. They'll help you be mobile. They'll be good for your cardiovascular system. They'll build strength. They'll just build speed. They'll build power. They'll build athleticism. They'll build proprioception. They are fantastic, and I highly recommend them. Just get checked by your doctor to find out what weaknesses you have ahead of time and make sure you're safe.
All right. Let's see. Trying to find the next question. My computer is being a little difficult.
Computers being difficult, I never could imagine that.
Okay. Well, I thought I had more questions. All right. Well, Alonzo, you got some questions there?
Let's take a look at this. I'm thinking of, and we may have already covered this, but I think it's important that you can only go as far. You can only get as stressed as what people as what you are willing for people to get into your personal space. So I definitely want people to consider setting boundaries for yourself. Okay, whether it be at work, whether it be personal life, understand that you're going to have stress in your life. It's going to happen, but how much you let into your life is going to be the determining factor. So if there's stress at work, and say, for instance, what's the difference? Is it a stressful time, meaning you've got deadlines, you guys got to hit a quota, or something happened where it's all hands on deck and you have a certain time frame of executables that you have to go through? It's going to be a part of it, because if you want to perform well, you got to get pushed to certain limits. However, if it's a stressful situation all the time, re-examine that environment. Is it something you can do short term, long term? Can it be adjusted? If not, what is your exit strategy? So understand that there's a lot of stress, but is it leading to an end goal of positivity? You're reaching a goal, or toxicity where it's not going to be beneficial at all. So I think some of these things people need to consider or think about where they are in their lives, personally and professionally. What, like Mike said, the scissor methodology, you got to cut something if it's not conducive to your growth. And just because you're getting pushed, and it creates stress for you to become better, that's something that needs to stay. But at the end of the time frame, if you feel like there's no benefit to that stress, start thinking about how you can mitigate those risks to your life, to your health, and move on, move into a new circle of friends, or reduce the contact that you have with certain family members that are not supporting your endeavors, or if it's at work, try to reposition yourself and filter out some of the toxicity, whether it be a teammate. Try to mitigate these things so that your overall core of peace can be maintained under certain conditions. What do you guys think about that?
Completely agree. Completely agree. I want to address Igor's question. And it says, hard question. How can people like me that know we make cognitive errors move forward when they're constantly creating objections for themselves about why they can't be successful? And Igor, you are an incredibly intelligent person. I know you. You're great. But here's the thing, Igor. Only you can make the decision to accept it. I remember many years ago, I was given some guidance and it sounded crazy to me. But the guidance came from somebody who was extremely successful. And they said, Mike, you need to change your path if you want to get to these goals. And I knew the person, and I was like, well, this person got here. And I started to buy books. And everything that person told me that was highly successful, when I started reading these books, I noticed they were right. And I just decided to take a leap of faith and say, yes, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm going to listen. And I got there. There's this young man, his name begins with an M. I started training him when he was 14 years old. Maybe he was 15. He found me in the gym. And the kid begged me to work out with him and train him in the gym. And, I had other bigger things to do. So I gave this kid an opportunity. And I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, you need to deadlift 225 for 150 reps as fast as you can. I said, I need you to do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 bodyweight squats when you're done that. And then I need you to run 2 miles. And when you're done that, I need you to swing a 55-pound kettlebell 250 times. If you're still there, I'll train you. You know what this kid did? He's deadlifted, he squatted, he's doing these pull-ups. They were looking a little sloppy. He had like a little CrossFit kip in there. He gutted it through. And then I agreed to train him. Now, this guy had all these preconceived notions in his head. And I said to him, that's not working for you. You need to do it this way. Wow, the kid got strong. He got powerful. He even competed on a powerlifting team. And then he said, now what's my future? And I said, all your friends that I see, they're all getting in trouble. One of them went and died. One of them was going shark fishing, where they would literally go out there with spear guns and some dead fish, and they would try to put it there, see a shark so they could spear gun it. I mean, it was crazy stuff. And I said, if you hang out with these people, you're going to die. If you want my guidance, you're going to do this, this, and this. Well, went to NTT, which is one of the biggest telecoms in the world. It's a Japanese telecom. Then went to Cisco, got on a job as an architect, then went on to even bigger roles. But he had to internalize it. And what he told me was really funny after the fact. He said, Mike, a lot of those things you told me seemed crazy. The guy was 25 years younger than me. So of course it seemed crazy. We're coming from different worlds. He said, but every time I didn't listen to you, it came back to bite me. He said, how are you right all the time? And I said, it's not that I'm right all the time. It's that I've done this already and I experienced and I know the secrets to success. And he said, how did you learn them so quickly? I said, I wasn't crazy enough to think I could figure them out. I asked people that already made it. So instead of making mistakes as a way to get there, I learned from other people's mistakes so I didn't have to make them. So Igor, you're going to have to make that decision. You are more capable than you even possibly imagine. I know you and I know how smart you are. But you're also your worst enemy. You have to become your best friend versus your worst enemy. And once you do that, Igor, what you can actually achieve will be extraordinary. And I know it because I know who you are and you're very smart. And you can say people in Poland, but I'll give you Ivan Tamba that lived on 8 hours a day. I'll give you Daniel Bosu that was homeless when he took our course. And I promise you, they have bigger challenges than you do. I promise you. And I promise my relatives in Greece have come to America with nothing, owing money on their airplane tickets, fought hard, and built empires for themselves. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and I'll address his last comment. So I literally said this at the beginning of the show. I wish I had taken everything that I know now and that I'm hearing now, and which I also heard back then, and applied it properly 15 years ago. So you probably heard all of this before, but it's a different time now. So stop looking for reasons of why you can't and start looking for reasons of why you should.
Absolutely.
And do it. So, I said it at the beginning of the show. 15 years ago, I wish I had taken all this to heart, but I didn't. Maybe pardon my French, I can't say it. Maybe I half-heartedly tried it. That's the nice way to say it. Maybe I half-heartedly tried it, everything, but didn't really. And if I'm completely honest with myself, I know that I didn't. But you got to be honest with yourself and recognize maybe I didn't do it right, or maybe I didn't take it seriously, or maybe I thought I was giving it a fair shot when I was really just setting it up for failure from the beginning. Kind of like saying, I hear everything you're saying, but it doesn't work for me.
Same thing.
That's already setting it up for failure. I hear everything you say, but it's not going to work for me. That is a defeatist mindset. And nothing will work for you with that mindset. So we need to get out of that. We can't have the mindset of, but me, but my situation, but my experience, but. We got to get rid of the buts. So, we're not Sir Mix-a-Lot here. We don't like the buts. Okay. We got to get rid of buts. You have to do the diligence. You have to do the work. You have to apply it. It may not be comfortable. It may seem silly to you. Trust me. I've tried a lot of things that I thought, man, this is silly. This is not going to work for me. It's not going to work for me because it didn't work for me in the past. Or it's not going to work for me because I'm different. Trust me, been there, done that, thought that, and still did it. And did it again. And did it more. And the more I did it, the more it worked. Now, am I saying that everything works? No. But you got to give everything a fair shot. If you give everything a fair shot, then something's going to work. But you've got to give it a fair shot to start with.
And you have to approach it. So I hurt my foot training in Israel many years ago in martial arts. By the time I got home to the United States after a quick stopover in Australia to close a deal, while hopping around on a single foot, I went to the doctor and they said, you're never going to walk again. You have reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which has a 100% disability rate. You also have a Lisfranc dislocation, which is a 60% disability rate. He said, we might be able to get rid of one of the two, but not most. He then said, we also have a problem in that you have 5 herniated discs, you've got arthritis everywhere. And if you do the physical therapy, you're never going to be okay. So get used to it. What would you like for pain? So that no basically meant, you don't know anything. So I went to the next doctor. The next doctor said, you're never going to be able to do this, but it's going to be worse than the other guy told me. Here's what you're going to live with. And I said, thank you, goodbye. And I went to the next one. 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 And they all told me it's not going to be okay. I'd never walk again. But I thought about it. And I thought about the things that I'd seen possible. I remembered one day I resuscitated a woman. Her heart stopped 7 times on the way to the hospital. And 20 years later, she was still living next to my grandmother. That wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. I remembered I had a patient that had a pneumonia so bad that all the doctors and nurse practitioners and pulmonologists said this person wouldn't make it through the night. But the person's daughter was engaged and ready to get married, and she was gone to her daughter's wedding. She went to that wedding. And I started to see people that were fighters and what they could get out of. And I said, well, I'm a fighter. If you tell me I can't do it, now I have to do it. And I did. Now, I'm going to tell you, I spent 7 hours in physical therapy every day for 8 years. Every day. And it was no fun. And physical therapy is still a part of my life. Now, you're going to see me going for long walks? No, you won't. You're going to see me running? No, you won't. But there's still so many good things that I can do. And maybe I don't deadlift 700 pounds anymore. Maybe I don't do 315-pound clean and jerks anymore. Maybe I do yoga. Maybe I do a little bit of machine work to try and stay strong, which I wouldn't have done when I was younger. But, we adapt. But the point is, every one of you, all of you, can do about 10 to 20 times more than you even know you have the capability to. And many people are lucky enough or unlucky enough to have what's called the crucible experience. A crucible experience is something that is so hard that at the end of that experience, you're different. Navy SEALs have buds. They go through the most miserable training program. There's a week in there where they're basically running 20 miles a day, swimming 6 miles a day, covered in sand, and they don't even get to sleep for an entire week. They call it Hell Week. That crucible experience is there. The Marines actually have an obstacle course that is terrifying. They actually call it the Crucible because people walk in there like they're going to die, and when they finish it, they know they can achieve just about anything. It's the reason when I was 12 years old, my parents hated it. I used to take my bike and go 100 miles away, and I'd ride my bike for 5 hours. It was 100 miles. I did it because I could prove to myself that if I could bike 100 miles, everything else would be easy. When I went to college, I was very poor, very poor. So I worked 3:30 to 11 as a firefighter paramedic. I worked 11 to 7 as a firefighter paramedic, and I worked 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. So I had 4 hours each on Saturday and Sunday to spend it with my girlfriend, who turned into my fiance, who turned into my wife. I did that for 4 years straight. And then I was working in internal medicine, and I was getting an MBA and learning networking. But the point is I did it, and you could do it too. There's nothing special about me. What's special about me is I don't quit until I win. All of you can do it. All of you now know how to be a little tougher. All of you, we talked about how to control your mind. Go do it. Go win. If you've got a dream, slay it like a dragon. Assuming you've got a magical sword. Go after it. If you want to run, pretend there's a lion chasing you, and you better run. You want that interview? Spend the time, the effort to prepare for that interview like your life absolutely depends on it. And never quit until you win. Just don't do it. Don't quit until you win, and you'll be successful at everything you've ever tried. You may have to try it 10 times, but who cares? As long as you get there. The CCI exam, most people take it 4 times to pass it. 90% of the people fail it when they take it. But people still do it. Mark's on this call, he did it. I did it. Mo may be on this call, he did it. Now, sure, they probably spent 12 hours a day for 6 months doing it. They spent between $15,000 and $50,000 to do it with money they may or may not have had, but they did it, and you can do it too. That's my point. Just go after your dreams. Have the confidence in yourself. Have the intestinal fortitude to go no matter how much it is, how hard it is, and go and win. Just go and win. I want you to think of a challenge as an opportunity. Win. When I wake up and my foot hurts and I'm in pain, you know what I say? Pain is weakness leaving the body. Here's my chance to get strong. And that gets me through it. So go out there and win. That's my closing statement for you. Win, win, win until you're sick of winning, and then go win some more. Take care, everybody. I hope you had a great time. And as a reminder, Chris popped the banner on the screen. We've got a 40% off sale for Cyber Week. Please take advantage of it and go keep winning and winning your career too. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everybody.